All right. Should we move down the list to even more infuriating things? All right. Number 7. I really want to know your reaction to this one. I've been waiting all night. Catholics are eusocial. Does everybody in the audience understand what the claim is? That you have a non-reproductive caste within Catholicism. Other religions too, but Catholics are kind to us in that they make everything so elaborate that we can...
Worker bees don't reproduce.
Right.
Priests theoretically don't.
Yeah, priests theoretically don't, and neither do nuns. Well, I think most of them probably don't. Don't you agree?
Yes. Yeah.
So, all right, the question is, you allege in The Selfish Gene that a celibate clergy is a failure of Darwinian selection. My claim here is that this isn't a failure, that this is adaptive celibacy, that it serves a lineage-level purpose.
It's meme level. That's what's going on there.
But if it's meme level, then each of those priests and each of those nuns is involved in a spectacular loss of a reproductive opportunity. I mean, this is the argument you lay out. So the question is, why are they so vulnerable to accept? I mean, most people couldn't forego romance and sex if they tried. And yet you have a group of people that is triggered to avoid these things, and they do so in the service of a bunch of ideas that, yes, are literally false.
A bunch of ideas, that's exactly right, a bunch of memes. So memes that make some individuals, in Ireland, for example, it has traditionally been a prestigious thing for one member of the family, one brother, to become a priest, a celibate priest. So the priest devotes all his energy to proselytizing and spreading the meme, and all the other memes. The better to persuade other Catholics to have more children than they should, and so that.
But then isn't it interesting that this person who, according to you, is involved in a failure of Darwinism just so happens to behave in a way that his genes are likely to be spread by virtue of the fact that he's encouraging...
Not his genes, his memes.
No, his genes. He's part of a lineage.
Oh, as it happens in Ireland, yes, that's true.
Well, but I mean, this is my claim, is that it is almost always going to be the case in any persistent religion that where you have people engaged in what appears to be some spectacular failure of Darwinism, that they just so happen to be spreading ideas that will result in the genes that are allowing them to fail as Darwinian entities to succeed by the lineage that holds those beliefs.
They devote all their energies to spreading Catholic memes, and they don't have to bother with the time and the responsibilities of a family, so they're wholly devoted to spreading Catholic memes, including, incidentally, more than incidentally, the meme for celibacy.
Well, they spread the meme for celibacy, which my claim, I mean, if I'm right about this, then my point would be that Catholic lineages would actually do less well if everybody reproduced, that there is an advantage to having individuals who have stepped out of the reproductive market and therefore become capable of speaking on behalf of the lineage. That somebody who is outside, I mean, think about a priest can't make a ton of money, right? And they can't reproduce, right? At least not out in public. And so the point is that takes them out of two modes through which they might be corrupted. Somebody who can't be corrupted because they're not in a position, even if they were to accumulate money, they couldn't spend it without calling attention to themselves. And they're not in a position to be sexually corrupted, at least not out in public. And so those two mechanisms just so happen to put them in a position to speak for the lineage.
So what are we disagreeing about? I mean,
I don't know. Maybe nothing. But if that is the case, so all right, you say, what are we disagreeing about? Is Catholicism a mind virus?
Well, it's a complex of mind viruses, yes.
That's what we're disagreeing about. Okay, my claim is that Catholicism is a complex of adaptations, that they are lineage-level adaptations, and that they are, in large measure, responsible for the success of lineages that hold this set of beliefs, having spread around the globe and having been so successful, efficient at creating adaptations of all types, sort of argument.
Let me attempt to place my worldview in a few sentences.
Please.
Darwinian natural selection is all about the differential survival of replicators. There are various kinds of replicators, of which genes are some and memes are other, and they are all engaged in a kind of tussle with each other to survive as replicators using vehicles which are bodies and which are brains and which are all sorts of other artifacts and things like that. Our separate genes, although they are, we unite them together under the one word genome, are actually, I regard them as similar to viruses in that they are changing their partners in every generation, and you can regard the whole genome as a massive collection of viruses, massive collection of independently tussling replicators who survive better because they go around together as a gang. They survive better in the company of other such replicators, and that's why we call them genes rather than viruses. There are others which survive better not going around in gangs, but going around by being sneezed into the atmosphere or whatever it is, by spreading around by other means. The only difference, the fundamental difference between those replicators which we call genes and those which we call viruses are that the method of transmission to the future of the ones that we call genes are through our sperms or our eggs, and therefore they have an interest in common to preserve the body in which they share, because that's the only way they're going to get into the next generation. That minority of them which are not destined to get into the next generation, get into the future via sperms or eggs, but by being sneezed into the air or defecated into the sewage system or left as blood lying around or something like that, we call them viruses, and the only difference is that their hope of getting into the future is not to cooperate with others in getting into an egg or a sperm, but getting out of the body in a different way by being sneezed. Now, memes are more of the latter category. They don't go through sperms or eggs. They do, however, quite a large extent go down through generations longitudinally. So although it's not sperms or eggs, they do go from parent to child. But we live in a great soup of replicators which are floating around. Some of them are memes, some of them are genes, some of them are cooperative genes which go through the generations through sperms and eggs. Some of them are cooperative memes that go through the generations in the form of parents indoctrinating children or schools indoctrinating children. But everything we see around us is a soup of replicators and their phenotypic tools of replication, among which are extended phenotypic tools of replication. And that's my piece said.
Okay. So I of course, agree with most of what you said. I in my own mind, think of genes at the moment that the zygote is created. They may be very uneasy with each other up to that moment, but at the moment they are fused into a zygote, that single cell that then becomes a 30 trillion cell human, let's say, they fall in love because, as you say, they have no mechanism for reproducing other than creating such an effective, coordinated creature that it is capable of reaching a moment of reproduction. And so it is that being trapped with shared fate that causes them to behave as an organism that is united in its purpose. So I think we agree on that.